That's right. This is our next panel of experts. And so led by Jamie Gleason and Jack Collette will be leading the panel of creative thinking, best practices for higher education and marketing design. Jack and Jamie, over to you.
Thanks, Nappy. And thank you, Heather. That was an incredible session. Like that last session, so much fun to listen to. I love all those people. So that made it like super, super fun. So thanks for having us. I think, Jack, you and I are very excited about this, right?
Jamie, I am so excited, and I will tell you why. First of all, the struggle has been real for me because Heather, Nappy, Jamie, you guys have been participating in this since Tuesday. I have been with my fellow innovators just watching and listening and learning. So I am super psyched to finally be with you all. So thanks for having me.
You're chomping at the bit, baby. This is, I'm trying to think like of a good analogy because, like these events they can be tiring, but I think all of us have this like pent up, like we've been in isolation for too long. So like this, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's like just an opportunity to put on a shirt like this and not have a meeting in my pajamas or, wear shoes or something like that. I feel like that's a big deal. But on top of that, to be able to hear the commentary, the comments, like the practices, the innovation, I mean, it's been a real joy. I mean, to be just frank, it's been a real joy for me.
Yeah, and that's been another thing, Jamie. I'm happy to be with you through this platform and this venue because as many folks who are joining us know, you and I are co-hosts of Capture's podcast, The Buzz. The podcast for higher ed. You can access it wherever you access your podcast.
There's a lot of episodes to listen to, so maybe you want to binge listen if that's a thing. Is that a thing? Binge listening?
It is now.
Totally a thing.
It is now. It wasn't already.
See, our subject matter experts are saying yes, it's a thing. So it is a thing.
I have to trust that.
Right, but people can usually just listen to us, but now I'm glad they'll see the face of Farmer Gleason. So listen, we've got a lot to share. So I say we go ahead and dive in. I just want to tee some things up here.
Sure.
And let folks know what it is that we're talking about. So Jamie, you know this because you are director of undergraduate initiatives for Capture. I'm director of graduate initiatives for Capture. And typically we are the subject matter experts for those particular areas, right? So we get to do the fun webinars and get to do things like this. But today, we don't really have to do that much.
No.
Because we are joined by 3 other Capture subject matter experts, but these are our subject matter experts that are our creative thinking subject matter experts. So these are the folks who, from design, from communications, from content, are creating all those wonderful pieces and campaigns that provide success for our partners. So Sarah Eckert, Laura Hagen, Hannah Ash, welcome.
Thanks.
And I think we should do a few minutes just to kind of give a little background. No one needs to know more about me and my do-it-yourself hobbies and things like that. But I think just understanding a little bit more, the part that's kind of funny about this, right, Jack, is that I think it's very tempting, for our partners, for those who, maybe see and listen to us often or see, their sales representative or things like that. Like there is a massive, massive people that are behind the scenes that are all subject matter experts in what they do, whether it's software development, communications writing, like there's so much going on behind the scenes. And really, we just kind of stand out front while they do the heavy lifting in the background. So I'm excited about the opportunity to have these folks here, even though I know that they like to stay in the background. This is going to be great for everyone to see and hear what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, so let's turn it over to them.
Yeah, let's turn it over. And why don't we start with you, Sarah, and tell us a little bit about who you are, kind of what you do on the day-to-day behind the scenes at Capture, and what you're maybe a little bit about your tenure in your field.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sarah Eckert, the Director of Creative Operations, and I lead the design team at Capture. I've been with Capture for 7 years, actually 7 years last month, and in higher ed for coming up on 11 years now.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. I'm Laura Hagan. I am a senior communications specialist. I've been with Capture actually just right about 5 years this month. Been mostly working in the comm department, so doing a lot of editing, working with all our partners, and I do a lot with our digital advertising as well.
Cool. Thank you, Laura. Sorry, I'm having some screen failure issues here.
All right, I'll go ahead and go. I'm Hannah Ash. I am a communication specialist. I have a similar role to Laura, and I've been at Capture for about a year and a half. Before coming to Capture, I worked in enrollment in higher ed for about 3.5 years. So I was an enrollment manager as well as an enrollment counselor for some time. So I did that for about 3.5 years.
Excellent. All right. Well, this is fun. Jack, I'm glad to see you back. I just for the listenership out there, we're having a little bit of a thunderstorm here in the Philadelphia area right now. So this might be an interesting little segment.
We are. That was a bit of a power flicker for me. So fingers crossed.
Oh no.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
That's right.
Keep us on our toes.
That's right. Well, Jack, I don't know about you, but I know that we have a few things to go through. Let's frame up like the background of this dialogue. So, we all know, and we're in a real season of innovation, right? This is happening in real times, and I talked about this on Wednesday or on Tuesday during our opening session. But in many ways, Innovate USA is a response to what happened to the pandemic, right? We had been having across the United States, we actually had a schedule of Innovate events on the calendar. We got 2 of them in, and the Philadelphia event was the very kind of literally right at the last week, we were able to get that in prior to everything being shut down. But during the Louisville event, we had this fun thing going on, right? We kind of did a game show-esque time where we did some critique. We talked to some partners. And this session that we're hoping to have today is going to be quasi like that, right? We're going to be talking through some of the best practices that we've seen because, we've done a lot of stuff. Heather just mentioned a minute ago that we've done literally millions of interventions, whether it's through the 429 million page views that we have overseen with our partners, whether it's through the 555 million emails that we've sent since 2015. That's not a fake number. There have been a lot of things that have happened. And that data set, because we love to measure things, is incredibly powerful. We get to see, hey, what works? What's less effective? When is this more effective? And today's session is really about that.
It is. The only difference is we don't have cocktails this time. I have coffee.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's not the same, and I'll give you that, Laura. You are correct. So why don't we start off, Jack? You want to tee this one up for us, or should I?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Look, we have 4, I think, best practices to share with you today, and we're going to start off here with the idea of email senders. So what do we mean by email senders? Well, when you send an email, right, it has to come from someone, and when it comes from that person, it displays in a certain way, either on your personal display device, or in your email account, right? You get to see exactly who it's from and maybe a little descriptive text. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about email senders.
And why are, like you mentioned, email senders are important, but why are they so important? Does someone from the operations team want to talk about why this is so important?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We actually did last year, we did a few different focus groups with some young people, some different ages throughout high school and those who just started college. And we talked to them and we were like, what do you guys want to see? What works for you? Can you tell when it's kind of a mass email, that kind of thing? And what we saw kind of ran the gamut. We saw that some people prefer the more personal approach. Some people want to know it's just from the school and they'll go further if they need to. So in addition to all the testing we've done, it was helpful to have all the kids come in and be able to give us some real life examples and use that kind of going forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the other things that I think we talk about a lot is we talk about subject lines in email, but also, I mean, when we think about it, when I interact on my phone or on my computer with email, it's a pretty little bit of real estate, but that makes a big difference. So knowing who it's from makes a big difference. So here's the trivia question. And for those of you who are out there in the listening audience, what I would encourage you to do is ping us on chat. If you want to take a guess at what you think is right, keep a tally on your notebook or whatever is going on, let us know like what you think, and then we will give you the answer. So question number 1 is got to get the right screen here. What email sender is most appropriate, best, perform the best? Let's just say maybe on the inquiry level, which one performed the best do you think? We'll give you a couple minutes to ruminate on the answer.
Yeah, so either A, B, or C here. Use the live chat and let us know. Jamie, this is a good point, a good moment, I think, to say, listen, we have done all of these campaigns, and we have our data that shows on aggregate what is the best practice here. But note that every institution is different. There are certain circumstances at an institution that will be very specific and might produce a different result. So always take a look at your own A/B testing and measure your own performance.
That's right. So should we get a drum roll, or we should just roll right into the answer? I think we should probably just roll right into the answer, right? They've waited long enough, folks. Yeah. And the answer is, as soon as my computer changes, the winner is, oh, sorry, I missed one more slide in there. This is fun. Here we go. Institution's name. So who wants to give us an explanation on this one?
Yeah, I'll take that. As you can see, we kind of did an example slide to kind of show you what it might show up like in some of these students' inbox. And as we said before, inquiry level, it depends. It's a little bit different than when you're further along in the pipeline. So, for example, this is my first time hearing from your school. I'm going to want to have it from the school directly because I may not know who Laura Hagen is, which you totally should. But you may not know who that person is, so it's a little bit more likely to be put into spam or dismissed by the student because they don't really recognize that name, whereas they recognize the college name above anything else. So that's something, like I said, we've done a lot of testing on, done a lot of back and forth on, and we've seen that for the most part, institution's name works the best, but as they get kind of further along and you do some of our triggered emails through our Engage product that's based more on behavioral, then those do a lot better when they're coming from a specific person, because then that student can get to know the person they'll be interacting with when they come on campus, or who they can ask more questions to rather than just a general office number.
Right. And I would also add, later on in the process, once they've already worked with an admissions counselor, then having the sender be that admissions counselor is fantastic because they already have a little bit of a rapport with them. And kind of along with that, if your institution is a little bit more quirky in some ways and you have a specific brand voice that you want to stick with, and you want the center to be your future home or something more creative like that, then absolutely you should do that to just stay true to your brand's voice.
Yeah. What I loved is seeing that, there's a variety of answers that came in from the listening audience. And I think that speaks to the fact that what you said, Laura, is that at different times through the cycle, there are varying levels of importance that different people play and different roles that people play. Here's the truth, though, and hopefully we all acknowledge this, even though we hear trends about email not being as big of a piece of the puzzle as it used to be. We have studies that show that email makes, it has an incredibly powerful brand, the ability to communicate a brand and speak generally to a lot of audiences. So that's not necessarily an A/B test that we get into today, but I think we have a success story written about it on our website. So I'd encourage you to go take a look at that if you're wondering about the value of email. All right. Thank you for any other thoughts on email sender? No. Oh, good. My goodness. Oh, boy. Here we go. I can't tell. I think what's happening is my keyboard is kind of taking a long time to catch up, and then I'm going too fast, too far. So I think that I'm a few slides ahead right now, and I'm really sorry for for what I'm doing here to all the people who are watching. So
Too Fast and Furious.
Is that where I'm
On
supposed
live
to be?
television.
I know. I know.
Right? We are live, right? So this is something that I think is important to give some context to. So what you're seeing here on your screen is really our second best practice. So for this, we're referring to popovers. So what is a popover? Jamie, you want to take that?
I would love to take that. So for those, and let me just give a caveat here to those who are out there listening and thinking, oh man, I hope that all these best practices, what we wanted to do today was talk about things that you can take, nuggets that you can take away from our experience and tests and plug them into your system, whether you're a capture partner or not. Because again, our goal as a company is to be innovative and help change the industry and make best use of resources and make most impactful use of resources. So this doesn't necessarily, there's some crossover applicability that we're going to get to, but a popover as we're talking about it right now, and you can see a couple of visual demonstrations here on mobile, but our Engage tool carries with it a number of different types of dynamic content. So things that are on your.edu page, if a visitor's on your.edu page and they are looking for a particular something, we have the ability, based on their status, based on where they're looking from, like all these different things, we can actually put different pieces of content in front of them in order to move them along in the funnel. So that's obviously our goal as a company, is to help you get your students in. So we use popovers as a tool to do that. So the question really is which one do we think performed the best? And the options are video popovers or image-only popovers. And we will give a few seconds here for those who are out there in the listening audience to give us their answer before I attempt to move to the next slide, hopefully successfully this time. I can see my own cursor, so that's a good sign, right? All right. And yes, thank you for the hope. And the winner is image only. There we go. Hopefully there's some people out there who said, oh, look at this. Here we go. Thanks for interacting. And we're going to talk through a little bit about why image only popovers seem to be the best. So who wants to handle that?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So this is actually an interesting thing that we found. We had initially assumed that video popovers would perform better because they're much more interactive. There's rich media. They're much more interesting. So, what we found, though, is that videos ended up being a little bit more of a distraction than actually helping with a click-through rate. In a lot of cases, we found that, they would maybe watch the video and then decide that they had all the information that they needed, and then they would move on without actually clicking through.
Sure.
So
sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, we had actually a question come in from one of the viewers that asked about video popovers. So do video popovers autoplay, or do you have to click on the icon in order to start that process?
Right. So the videos are actually embedded within these popovers. So they're HTML-based popovers. So while the video doesn't automatically start playing when the popover is served to you, the video is just embedded right there, so you don't have to leave the page to actually watch the video.
So when it does pop up, though, you just click at one time.
You just click play, and it just plays right there where it is. So you don't have to actually leave the EDU site. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times they would watch that video, get all their information, they would X out, and then wander along and look at different pages on the website, but we weren't really capturing that click-through rate.
Sure.
And the biggest issue there is we lose that engagement. We can't really track that engagement nearly as well.
Sure.
So all of that being said, it doesn't mean that the overall engagement was low, just that we can't really track that.
Sure.
So, I would say if you're looking for a click-through, then the image-only popovers are really the best option.
Sure.
But just like any other type of marketing that you're doing, it really depends on what your goal is. If you are really wanting just to give someone some information, or in this post-pandemic world, do something more like a virtual tour or a related video, and you're not as concerned with people clicking through to a specific spot on your website, video popovers or any other type of marketing automation that uses that rich media, it's still the way to go.
Yeah, and I think go ahead, Laura. Sorry.
I was going to say everybody takes in information a little bit differently, so this isn't necessarily a be-all, end-all for everyone or everything, but for some people, a video will work a little better than scrolling through all that text, and they don't want to take the time to kind of read that. So I think just knowing your own brand and knowing what works well for you all, and if you have some great videos to show, then we definitely want to show those. But yeah, we have seen a lot more success just in the things we've done because we do measure the click-through rate.
Right. Yeah. And there is something to be said for adding that interactive element, which I think we should always be trying, and that's possible. But again, it comes down to like what your goal is. So that's the sort of running theme with these best practices is it definitely depends on your situation and what your goal for the campaign is.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny. So as someone who has helped put some of these campaigns together, one of the things that I think is interesting is that perhaps, and this is just a complete, I'm just throwing this out there. This is a spitball idea, but maybe when there's not the need for as clear of a call to action, the video popover really works well. So say for a parent who's you're trying to acclimate the parent to the institution, you're trying to get a little feel of the culture or something like that, where it is, it's something where you can just take it in instead of the real precise need of hey, click here to get to the application or the accepted student opportunity or something like that.
Yeah, definitely something that's a little bit more informational, where you're not trying to gather their information from it, and you just want them to get the info and then continue navigating through the site. They're perfect for that.
Yep.
And I will also say, just kind of outside of just the popovers and the marketing automation, when you're looking at things like social advertising, videos are still a big thing because, with a popover, they're already on your website. You're not trying to get them to your website.
Sure.
But then if you look at social advertising, you want them to get that little bit of a video and then be interested enough to navigate to your site. So it is a little bit different when you look at some different applications of the videos and in different media.
So we have a question here that's very interesting and one that we actually can't answer. We don't do photo shoots or video shoots, but if you're a VP out there, a director of admissions, and or even a director of marketing, or where you're thinking about your photo assets for this upcoming cycle, can you chime in and help us answer Brian's question? Does anyone have plans for doing video shoots? This is certainly a great question because I think we're at this moment of time that we're in right now. It's almost like we want to celebrate it and grab it as much as we can, the unique opportunity that it is. So, Brian, I think it's a great question. I'd love to hear what other people are thinking relative to that topic. And we have one other question related to video popovers before we move on to the next segment. So, can we have video popovers only on desktops, and are we able to disable them on mobile devices?
Laura, Hannah, do you one of you want to take this?
Yes. So we are actually able to set special parameters. So we can set it up to only serve on desktops, and then we could have a similar one that maybe is just like a screen grab from the video to serve on mobile. We can set it up to serve that way.
That's a great question, Tracy. Thanks for asking that one. And we can, if you have further questions on that topic, we can be reached. I think there's an email link that goes out at the end of our presentation with our info on it. But if you reach out to capture /contact, you'll get us. All right. Next segment here.
Hey, Jamie, about the face mask thing, I also want to know what schools are have made their own face masks and
I was thinking that too.
In the bookstore giving them that orientation because I, for one, would have loved to have one for my alma mater when I was going. If I was
That is a great idea. That is an awesome idea. There you go, folks. For those of you who are trying to figure out how to use your marketing budget, if you're not going to have as many view books because you're not traveling, that could be the way to use it.
That is a great idea. I would never have even thought about that, but I love that.
Thank you.
Well done.
All credit goes to Laura Hagen right there. All right, next segment, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A time here. Again, as Jack said, we have 3 industry experts here who have done an immense amount of work on different campaigns for our company, for our partners. So we're going to ask one question. What is the most interesting or the most innovative piece of content that you have ever worked on for a partner? Laura.
I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I was actually thinking of one that I unfortunately didn't get to do with one of my partners yet, but I really want to bring it in. I speak in GIFs pretty much. When I text people, when I on Teams, you all have been on the receiving end of that. So, you know, but I thought it was really cool. We did a GIF for a partner with text, and it was text bubbles kind of responding to different questions that the student had. And that performed really well for us. And it was kind of cool because it was just something different, broke up the text, and it was able to like show a different side of things and kind of modernized it a little bit more than the usual. That was, I think last year we did that. It was really fun.
That one was cool. I remember that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go. Oh yeah, I'll go next. So kind of like Laura, this isn't one that I actually got the opportunity to work on. So I can't take credit for it, but I thought it was a brilliant idea. A few months ago, we did a fee waiver email, and it was an interesting concept. You know, the email had very little actual content in it. It was very short, just a couple of sentences, but right in the middle was an animated GIF of a gift card. And it was really cool to me because, you know, when I get a gift card, I get really excited. I'm like, yes, free money, and I want to go spend it. And I think that gets really exciting for people who are receiving that email. So that, I think, was probably my favorite.
I remember that one. That one was really good.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
Yeah, I love that one. Mine isn't so much a particular piece of content, but approach to creating copy. We have a couple partners that are approaching it in a really refreshing and kind of bold way. We know that Gen Z is they're extremely aware that they're being marketed to. So I love a good pun. Actually, I love bad puns too. The bad humor really
those are the best.
But this approach really cuts through sort of like some of the gimmicky language and some of the slogans, and is just really direct. And I think that's something that's really bold and really refreshing, and something that Gen Z appreciates. And I've seen those kinds of pieces performing really well.
Very good. We did get an answer. Laura Rudolph, who presented on Tuesday, did say that they are producing Transylvania specific face masks. So as always, Laura, like unbelievable. Well done. Way to be out in front there. Hopefully there'll be some others here who will jump on that bandwagon, which is America's favorite vehicle. All right. I think that the thunderstorm maybe got the best of Jack, and he might not be rejoining us. So I'm just going to take the helm here, and we're going to go to the next piece of best practice. The question is, the content that we're going to cover here is testimonials. And we all know what these are, right? Like, and I've personally always had a very big affinity to testimonials. I'm super into kind of, learning to love something through association. And I feel like testimonials do that. But I know that there's some opinions on testimonials, right? And we know some things that work well and what doesn't work well. So let's take a poll here of our audience. Which one works the best? They're going to pop up here real quick. There we go. What do we think performed the best? A toaster testimonial, a popover testimonial. Let me describe the difference there. A toaster, for those of you who are not capture partners and potentially are less familiar with the kind of the nuances of our technology. So if you see down on your screen where the little capture logo is, a toaster is often something kind of like a chat box that you're on, like on any website where it kind of pops up, gives a slight message. Hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to help you if you need me. Although the toaster isn't a person, usually in this case, it would be a testimonial. Whereas the popover would kind of jump into the space where the B circle is. It would kind of gray out the rest of the screen behind you. And then kind of take up and dominate the space. The difference between the two is that the toaster you have to X out of. The toaster goes away. The popover, sometimes you have to actually X out of. So if you've given your answer already, then thank you. If you haven't, there's still time. Let's talk about what has performed the best for us historically when it comes to student testimonials. Actually, testimonials in general. I'm not sure that they're always just students. The answer is, go ahead.
going to say, yeah, in the focus group that we did with the students, that this was one of the things we covered of who would you rather hear from, what would you respond better to, and overwhelmingly the students said they want to hear if it's program specific, they want to hear from somebody in the program, they want to hear from a professor from the program, a student about campus life, that kind of thing. So testimonials are always very helpful.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Here's where we see the best response. Can someone tell me here, like, what's the mechanism we're gauging for the success here? Is it? I'm assuming there's something to do with clicking into it and clicking into the content.
Right. Yeah. So we are looking at the clicks. So that would be for both of them. And this one is a little bit of a tricky answer because it's another one where it really depends on the situation. So while emails are an ideal way to share like longer and more general testimonials, we've also seen that dynamic content testimonials can perform well too. So for those that are on dynamic content, we try to make them more program specific because those tend to do better.
Okay. And let's just translate this out to another medium. So if you're not using dynamic content, if you're not a capture partner, what are some other mechanisms for the use of testimonial? Could be something like
the carousels on a website, like if they have program specific pages or just on the homepage, that can be a really good place to highlight them.
Okay. So like you're talking about like in the banner, like display that kind of scroll through. Okay. Perfect. All right.
Yeah. Or even as you're scrolling down on a specific page, if you even just have a pull quote, that clicks into that story, that is also, I think, a really good way to introduce those testimonials.
Because again, testimonials are really powerful. So you want to be very intentional and selective about where you use them. But like we said, they can be extremely effective. Just pay attention to where you're using them and how you're using them to really leverage the power that they have.
Yeah, with the smaller options with the toasters and popovers, we have a little more limited landscape. So if this is going to be shown to a student that's not very familiar, you don't really want a more involved quote. We'll get kind of a longer one that we'll have to kind of trim down. So email is very good for kind of getting everything in there. But if it's a quick, really good quote about a certain program or why they love the school, that's doing really well on our popovers and posters.
Right.
Is there a length, is there an optimal length, or is this kind of a subjective based on the institution, based on the funnel status that you're going after? Anything like that you have a general rule that you abide by?
If you want to go to the next slide, I believe we have
some examples.
See, this is what happens when Jack leaves. I mean, I just fall apart. That's really what's happening here. This is a live demonstration of what's. Oh, look at that! Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. There we have some very specific examples.
Yeah. So with popovers, we're able to include a lot more information along with imagery and more interesting design, just because it's a little bit bigger and it takes over more landscape of the page. So we're using a lot longer quotes in those. Toasters are a little bit smaller, so we try not to overwhelm the graphic with text. We use a pared down version of a quote or a quick snapshot of the student story, and often link directly to that student story where we need to.
Sure.
Right.
Well, great question just came in from the audience wondering about the applicability. So do students or do we see prospects really resonating with graduates who maybe are a little bit beyond their age demographic or beyond is there some sort of link between program, or is the fact that they just share the institutional affinity, is that the common bond that makes it powerful?
I would say that it's similar to the general student testimonials, where it depends on what the student's already interested in. So program is a really good way to go because then it's sort of a testimony about ROI. So careers that you can go into.
Sure.
Or talking about how after you graduate, you have this great network of alumni that you can connect with. So it does depend a little bit. I think they can be effective. They're just not always as effective as student testimonials.
And I think for some alumni, sorry, Laura, I think for some alumni testimonials, it really depends on who that person is. You know, if that person has this, you know, really famous type of job, then no matter how long ago they graduated, I think it can still be powerful.
Yeah, a couple things on that. We did, for one of my partners, I know we did a testimonial toaster about a student that went on to work for the Green Bay Packers and had a picture of the student and Aaron Rodgers, and that did really well for us and for them. And then I know I keep going back to it, but the focus group was really helpful in this area because the students were saying, besides affordability, the academics are the first things that they're looking for. So if it's their program, they're going to want to know what kind of jobs can I get, what opportunities do I have, and alumni being able to speak to that is very helpful.
Right.
Yeah. And that actually speaks to other results that we've seen in terms of click-through rates on emails and different things like that. Affordability is usually at the top. Academics usually right there below it, not far below it. And I think depending on the institution or the demographic, then we see different results, you know, kind of one way or the other from one or two. All right. We are, here's another example of
these are email
testimonials and how those have been used. Sorry, folks. I feel like I'm a PowerPoint failure right now when it comes to flipping through these slides. I'm doing my best. Thanks for your grace. Thanks for your grace. All right. Final question before we get to the next Q&A about you four. Email images. Okay. Email images are important, right? We want to make sure that we have emails that are not only relevant and the right length, but we also want to capture the right kind of the look and feel, the format. So what has performed better? And I think this is an interesting one too, because, you know, the use of GIFs, you know, I know you said, Laura, that your life is really just one extended GIF after another. So that's which if I think about that, I think is very funny to think about. But I think the use of GIF, as we have seen it, you know, I know that my kids, you know, send me GIFs all the time. And I feel like when I look at their messages between their friends, you know, it's like one GIF after another, just like, it's like a GIF off. Is that a thing? That must be a thing. But I think the use of these kind of animated images, I always find it to be very fun, right? I think it's great. So the question really becomes, which one did we think, or which one did we see? Not only did we think, which one did we see perform the best? And pretty soon the answer is, Peter's getting in early with the answer. Thanks for chiming in, Peter. Any of you others have a response to this one? Look at this. We got a bunch of right people here. They're correct. You are correct. All those who answered A, you are right. You get the satisfaction of knowing that you are correct. So who wants to explain this one?
I'll take this one. So this actually, sorry guys, it's a little bit of a trick question. So, you know, we haven't really seen a huge difference in click-through rates when it comes to static versus animated images, particularly in header images. But, you know, I give static images the edge on this just a little bit for a couple of reasons that are completely outside of click rates. One of them being... You got
me curious, Sarah.
Yeah. So one of them being a lot of times when you're creating animated GIFs, the file sizes end up getting a little bit larger.
Sure. And
then that makes it a little bit harder for downloading for the recipient. You know, if they're on a lower internet connection, it might take them a little while and they may not be super into it. So you have to think about the file size. And then the other thing is to keep those file sizes lower, it can be hard to do with keeping the quality high of the image. So, you know, taking those things into consideration, static images do have an edge here. That being said, there's always a caveat, and, you know, rules are made to be broken sometimes, that, you know, if there is a time where you have something and you're like, you know, an animated GIF would really make this content pop, then you should absolutely use it. This is never to say that you should avoid animated images. Just know that there are some caveats with those animated images.
Right. And it's one of those things where, like, you can overuse them and it sort of just becomes the normal. But if you don't usually use them and then you do, it becomes really impactful.
So what you're saying is, like my 401k portfolio, we should have a little diversification when it comes to the emails that we're sending out.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There we go. I mean, so I'm channeling Kevin Bauman right there and talking about financial stuff, because that's kind of what he always goes back to when we're recording the buzz. All right. Last question. Enrollment management and higher ed we live in a world of innovation, right? We live in a world where things are changing. And I think if I think back on the 15 years that I've been involved in higher ed, one of the things that sticks out the most for me is the differences in mediums and technology and the evolution and morphing that has happened along the way. It's been spectacular. It's fun to watch. It's scary to operate in. It leaves never a dull moment for anyone who's in this crazy field. Like this, the truth is, this is something that is constantly something that we need to be in front of. Mm-hmm. So the question to you, as 4 professionals who work in this day in and day out, is what do you think could be the next big thing in outreach and communications to prospects?
Who wants to go first?
Cue Jeopardy tune.
I'll go. So I think what we're going to see is a lot of integration between existing technologies. Like, for example, a prospective student will get an email telling them to go check their physical mailbox, and then they'll check it and they'll find like a mailer or something, just to make it a really seamless approach where everything works together. And so I don't really have any specific like new technology, but I think how technologies work together is going to change.
And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I actually have a colleague or a counterpart, someone I know who works in the mail industry, and there are actually these mechanisms. And again, this is I think this is the cool thing, because I don't know much about it, but it's like there are actually mechanisms now, kind of like your Amazon delivery, where you can actually track your direct mail and figure out when it's delivered, and then cue that message that you were talking about, Hannah. I think that could be. I love that. I mean, I still love getting mail too. So
me too.
Real mail, not just the bills and stuff.
Yeah. Do they still call it snail mail, or is that an old term?
Yeah, snail mail. There you go. USPS, whatever.
Yeah,
exactly. From my end, just what I'm kind of seeing in the digital space is where it's at. I think it's so many students are on all of these different apps and sharing streaming services, and that's the way to get in front of them. So just any other way we can do that and work with that with our existing offerings is going to be great.
Yeah. And so the one that I'm thinking of, it kind of piggybacks on what Hannah was saying with different technologies. So what I'm thinking is one of the next big things is going to be augmented or virtual reality. I know we referenced this in a webinar that we did several months ago. But these technologies, AR and VR, are becoming a lot more popular, especially in higher ed. And, it's a mix of different phone apps and some mailers where you can kind of create that virtual reality pretty easily, actually, at this point. And especially right now with the pandemic, having that available for virtual tours and things like that, I think can be really powerful.
That's a very, I actually, funny you say that, because I used to, when I was an account executive, I used to work with Brad Camilleri at Biola. And I remember one of the first times I went on campus, he was opening a package of something that they had just got for their admitted students. And it was actually a pair of like foldable glasses that you could stick your phone down in.
Yeah.
And then depending on the angle that you turned your head, it would like take you around campus. So that,
exactly.
In this period that we're in right now, that is like a phenomenal tool where you can actually personalize that communication. I actually think maybe every student had an individual URL, so there was some personalization within that. So I'll give props to Brad there for he's just a guy who's ahead of his time. He's just an amazing thinker. So here's the summary, everyone. I think we're nearing the end of our time. I want to say that it was we had a 2:30 ending time. Can everyone nod if I'm correct or incorrect there? I think that we're right there. And I just want to say, my heart goes out to Jack. We've missed having him here. He's a fun person to talk with, and I'm sure that he will have some comments about his internet connectivity once we get him back online. But here's the summary. Your institution's name, we want to make sure that what's going out from your institution is powerful. And the way that is most powerful is for them to get past the inbox. So make sure that you're paying attention. Use pick the right sender for the right section of the funnel. I think that, like Jack said, there is a lot of diversification and variation depending on the geography and the type of institution you are. But there's also this, this period of time where we have to think about different components of the funnel, right? Like what makes sense for this student at the very top of the funnel, or maybe a sophomore, might not make sense for your accepted student or your deposited student. So I think using the assets are available, and also getting at, like everything says these days, and like we have seen through our engagements online, personalization. So pay attention to your users and make sure that you're giving them the appropriate person. Web interactions, we want to make sure that we have fewer distractions. So that's where the static image won the race in that one. And then testimonials are great. We also know that was a little bit of a trick question. So there's a few trick questions. Actually, I think maybe all of these were trick questions. We really want to get down to it. So one thing, never trust the operations team when you work with them, because it's all a bunch of trick questions is the takeaway. Yeah. Testimonials, like I said, one of the things I actually ended up going to the college that I went to because of a piece of stock photography. But the reason I liked the photography was because it was a rock climber. And at the time, I was really into rock climbing. Mm-hmm. So that was the thing that actually ended up landing me at the school that I graduated from, was that piece of stock photography. So that association, whether it's through stock photography or testimonials or geography or things like that, those are key components to that personalization process. And I think sometimes maybe we think personalization is all about like, making sure that you're talking about the person's major or their name and all that, which are important. But like there are other ways to personalize geographically and things like that. And then lastly, animated images. We can use them sparingly. I think the real takeaway was mix it up like you do your 401k portfolio, and really make sure that you're punching up your content, especially in a time that we're in like right now. The digital the copy that we're sending out is critical to get engagement. And we all know, with the potential diminished funnel that we all have out there because of search limitations, travel and visit limitations, this summer is going to be different. So it's going to be the onus is on us to make sure that we're notching that creative element up to where it needs to be for this coming cycle. Mm-hmm. Anything I'm missing, ladies?
No, you got it.
Yeah, well, and I just want to add one real quick thing, because I know that we did talk about everything being kind of a trick question. Yeah. And it goes to that last point on that summary. Best practices aren't always the best 100% of the time.
Sure.
So, be creative, try a few new things. That's how we found out a lot of these things, is just by experimenting and trying a few different creative ideas. So, start with the best practice, but if you have another idea, go for it.
Yeah. And I would say this, let me just throw this out there to the audience, right? If you're a partner and you're listening in right now and you have this like burning idea, which I'm pretty sure that most of the capture team is happy that I'm not an account executive anymore because of these burning ideas that I had in my head sometimes. If you have an idea that you want to experiment on, one of the things that we love doing is understanding more what works. Like, you are the creative fuel that drives us. So help us by giving that answer, putting it in the live comments right now, talking to your account executive. And I'll say this too, if you're not a capture partner and you are interested in seeing us test something, throw that out there, because we're also interested in that. We would love to give you feedback and some insight. If we may have already done something, and we obviously did not publish all of our A/B tests. Otherwise we'd be here until like December. But this is what we love to do. We love to make your performance sing. So I think with that, there we go. There they are.
Hey guys.
Fearless leaders.
Thank you so much for all of that amazing information that you guys shared. What you have seen in the mass of interventions, right? And the trends that you're picking up, phenomenal. Sarah, I thought your point at the end was fantastic. Thanks so much for all that you're bringing to the table, what you're doing for our partners and for the insights for the attendees today.
Well, thanks for
Thanks
letting
for
us.
having us.
Thanks for having us on
Thank
here.
you.
Absolutely.